Hi, I'm Michael DePlata. I'm the VP of Creative at Monolith Productions.
Michael, what are you showing here at GDC?
This is our first reveal of Middle-earth Shadow of War, so the sequel to Shadow of Mordor.
Wow, so that was Shadow Mordor came out about 3 years ago, and you guys have been working on this since the game ended, correct?
Yeah, we've been working on this basically since the day Shadow of Mordor went gold, so we've been kind of all in on this game.
So talk about what's going on in the story of this world. Where does it take place, and is it a continuation?
So this begins almost immediately after Shadow of Mordor ended. So in Shadow of Mordor, they hadn't managed to reach Sauron, and they needed to become more powerful. So Shadow of Mordor ended with, we need to forge a new ring. The time has come for a new ring. And Celebrimbor, the guy who forged the original rings of power with Sauron, forges a new ring of power. So that's where our story begins. And we see the consequences of that. But the other thing is the scale of the war itself has become much more epic. Sauron has grown in power, the Nazgul have returned, the armies of the Dark Lord have come out beyond Mordor, and they're besieging the human Gondorian city of Minas Ithil. So everything's really up to a much more epic level.
Epic is an understatement, really. So talk about the Nemesis System was a big deal in your Shadow of Mordor. Talk about how you've improved it and enhanced it in Shadow of War.
So the Nemesis System was something we were really developing and we focused on a lot in the first game, and we of course learned so much. So this time we've massively increased the depth and variety of stories that you have with your enemies and all the things that make your enemies memorable, from their scars and them wanting revenge on you and the different personalities. So that's grown massively. And on top of that, we've also put a lot of emphasis now on really paying off the promise of you actually building your army and having your followers. And then finally, we've taken the idea of the Nemesis system and personalizing the game and expanded that to the world itself. So every fortress or every area of the game is actually under control of a different overlord who's a unique Nemesis enemy, and his influence then spreads throughout the world and affects the entire sandbox or culture and society. So we've really tried to make it a very dynamic, living world.
So talk a little about how you even made improvements to, in the first game, when you mind controlled an orc, it was kind of like whatever, he's cannon fodder, If he dies, he dies, I don't care, he was trying to kill me. But you've tried to make it more relationship-wise in this game, like they're your friends, they're your allies, they support you, and so you actually care about if they die.
Yeah, and again, there's two sides to why you're going to care about them. One is the gameplay, so the different abilities and powers and combat abilities and the orcs infighting each other, that's expanded enormously. So having them as part of your army, what type of orc they are, what their skills are, what their class are, that matters. And then as far as the different stories and memories go, we've also expanded that enormously. So they'll remember and feel betrayed if you demote them, or if you kill their best friend, or if you leave them to die. So it creates entirely new missions and types of stories and relationships, and again creates this very dynamic living world.
So in the first game, it was very open world, where you can kind of win everywhere and like took over forts and killed specific targets. In this game, is that still the same, or is it more condensed to forts that you're just sieging and taking control over?
So every region within the world is now a lot bigger than the two regions we had last time. And then within each of those regions, there's this massive fortress that then controls and spreads its influence over the region. So you build up your power in order to, besiege and hopefully conquer the fort. And then once you control it, your influence will then spread throughout the region, and you can use that to upgrade and grow your army and defend it against counterattacks. So basically everything's kind of an order of magnitude bigger.
Now, you mentioned you're going to have a lot more varieties in terms of orcs and Uruk-hai in this next sequel. Were you able to take models from Shadow of Mordor and then add them in and then make, 20 more ones for your development?
Yes and no. So we obviously looked at some of the best elements of the orcs in Shadow of Mordor, but because every element of the game is expanded so much, so the technology behind scars, having scars on the body, having the variety of the different heads, hairdos, armor, tribal armor, more roles. So everything's so much more varied and dynamic that we kind of had to redo everything from scratch.
So talk about the new enemies in the game. Are there any new varieties of enemy?
Yeah, there's a lot. So there's the creatures, like the beasts of Mordor. So we saw the dragons there, of course. We saw the giant siege beasts. But then within the orcs themselves, they now have an enormously expanded range of new abilities and attacks and weapons and special attacks. The elements play a much bigger part in the game. So curse weapons, fire weapons, poison that can debuff or change the environment. The sandbox itself is much more dynamic and dangerous, and then all of this stuff mixes together. And then the orcs now go up to like level 60, so they can grow a lot more in power, and they have a whole range of different advanced classes. So we have specialized assassins or marksmen or beast hunters or trackers, so just sort of almost limitless variety.
Is Shaleb in the game, or maybe her spiderlings?
Oh, we're not actually commenting on any of the characters just yet, but I mean, you did see there's Minas Morgul there, and there's Kira Thungal there.
So talk about, like, how do you guys end up getting the rights to make a game like this? Because the Lord of the Rings, they're very, specific about their rights. They want to make sure that, everything's handled correctly and proportionally and, to their liking.
So we work really closely with Middle-earth Enterprises, and we have some amazing scholars that we work with as well, so experts in Tolkien lore. We're sort of lifelong fans, so everything that we do is through this process of collaboration and feedback to make sure that we stay within the canon, we stay within the known information, but also we also need to tell an original story that's meaningful as well. So, and that's sometimes a hard ride, a hard line to ride, but it is this process of collaborating and research and just attention to detail that I think just builds up this kind of trust and this great working relationship we have with those guys.
Can you get a little more deep? Can you explain more deeply a little bit about that process? Like when you introduce like maybe a new type of orc, do you go to them and say, "How does this look?" and then you guys go back and forth, or?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So everything that we create goes through from our script through to every element, and they'll approve it. But if they do have feedback on it, it's always through the lens of this is how you could make it more authentic. This is how you could even make that fit better within the canon and be authentic to Middle-earth.
And will we see the Guardians of Middle-earth this time around?
Not as such, no.
All right, and when does the game come out and what platforms will it be on?
So it's coming out on August 22nd on Xbox One, of course, and Project Scorpio, and PC, and also PlayStation 4.